G'day humans, Chris Stead here. Here I am with my oldest son arriving at Thredbo. In this video I'm going to talk to you through the best runs to do with kids at Thredbo down the snowy mountains of New South Wales there. Starting with, of course, Friday Flats. Now, you might think a bit boring going for Friday Flats to begin with, but you know what? This is a video about whether you're traveling there with kids like I did. I went down there with my 3 kids. And the action is going to start on Friday Flats, which is look, it's a gentle slope. It starts a little bit steep for the kids when they first begin, and then it just works its way down nicely. It does get a little bit crowded and the rides are a bit slow, but for when you're just learning, it's good. And there's always plenty of snow there because the man-made machines, or the snow-making machines, are right there. Now, the car park is really close. There's eateries there as well, so it's just a really good place to start off with the kids and hang. And there is a bit of diversity there. You can catch the chairlift, you can also get some rope pulls and everything. And I thought I'd just show you this as well. So at the end of the week, the kids get to come down at night time, which is a bit of a thrill. I think they call it the flare run. And so you can see all the groms there making their way down the mountain from smallest to biggest. So yeah, look, perhaps a bit obvious, bit of a boring one to begin with, but Friday Flats absolutely has to be amongst the best runs to do with kids in family, as a family with kids in Thredbo. All right, now from there, you're gonna move up to probably the cruise area. Now, I've done this video in order of how I progress with my kids, just to give you an idea of how you kind of level up. So once they have Friday Flats, they've mastered that, they're probably gonna come up here. It's kind of easy to get to, and from the Friday Flats area, you can just walk up and go on the gondola. And your lessons will probably take you up there as well if they're doing lessons. Now here you can see my oldest son carving down. Now during this video, there's obviously runs and they've each got names, but the way that Thredbo is, you're likely to crisscross between the different runs. And the other reason that I wanted to kind of show you this video, this season's videos, because I've been on a couple of times, is this was a real low snow season. And when there's a lot of snow, you can really kind of just take off between the trees and the rocks and go almost anywhere on the slopes. But when there's not much snow, you kind of got to stick a bit more to the run. So I thought it was a bit more pertinent here. So here we are, we've caught the cruiser chairlift up. I'm now going down what they call the squatter's run. Now from the top of here, you can head down. There's a whole bunch of different runs you can go down. Walkabouts, the squatter's run will take you all the way down through the middle, and ballroom. Now you can crisscross between the 3 quite easily. It's just like a little bit of like a thin lining of trees between them. It kind of escalates things a little bit to weave between them, and there's a little bit more powder. It's a lot more fun. We didn't really do it this year because it's just ice in the middle and a lot softer and nicer out here on the actual runs themselves. But as you can see, you can probably, I have sped this up a little bit, so if it looks a little goofy at times, that's why. But here we are cruising down. As you can see, just nice big open spaces. Can get a little bit busy at times. But is usually reasonably well protected from the wind, which is good, because it's a bit more in the trees. Up the top can get very windy, absolutely, but you kind of drop off here, you're a little bit out of the wind. There's little banks you can go hit, little jumps in between. There's little terrain parks which we're heading down to now. So this is an example of just transitioning between the 2 runs. So if one run's a little bit busy, you can just easily head across or find a little ramp, a little place to hit, and you can see the snowmaking machines there as well. So Thredbo does a real excellent job actually. I was really impressed by how much fun there was still to be had and snow there was to be found. Not thick powder, but just snow to be found, even though there wasn't a big snow year. And down the bottom here, and I believe this is a ballroom, the bottom of ballroom, you've got a little terrain park they've set up, which is kind of a beginner one that the kids can just starting out on when they're just trying to find their feet, and a couple of little jumps, nothing too outrageous, just ready there, ready, and this takes you straight down to the bottom there. Okay, next we've got High Moon. It's one of the kids' favourites. So this is where you kind of go up the Cannonball Express, which goes from Friday Flats. This is kind of the bigger chairlift, and it'll take you right to the top. You can go left or right. You can go back down to where we just showed you if you kind of head towards the, well, I guess if you're coming off, if you're heading right. If you head left, you can come down into High Moon. So High Moon is kind of the next step that you'll probably take with the kids. Now you can just cut straight down, but it gets a bit icy. So I've traversed across here to another run called, I think it's called Exhibition. No, it's not. It's called Lenny's Leap, I think. And this is a bit easier to get a few turns in without any ice, and then you can cut back across to High Noon. So as you can see here, this is late in the afternoon, and the shadows really started to kick in. So that's something I'm going to bring this up later on again when I take you to the other side of the mountain. But definitely in the afternoons it can get a little dark on this side. Not too bad when it's a day like this, but when there's a bit of snow around, the vision can get a bit challenging in this dark, at least for my old eyes. Now you can see like a bit fenced off there, the moguls. This is probably due to the not being a big snow year. But the beauty of High Moon is that it just challenges the kids a little bit more. So they've got a bit more going on. There's a couple of like genuinely steep bits that they'll need to negotiate. It's still a blue run, I believe. So you're not kind of stepping up to black or anything like that, but you get a bit more challenge for the kids. There's a bit kind of a slightly step up in the age of the people that are using this run as well. So it's once you've kind of nailed the cruiser and the kids have done heaps of the cruiser, maybe even a day on the cruiser area, that's when you might step over, give High Noon a nudge. And as you can see coming down here, I'm natural footed on a snowboard here, so I tend to kind of hit that right bank a bit because it's a bit easier hitting the left bank. And this just gets a little bit steep just a bit further down here. And now it does split into two different runs, so you don't have to take the mega steep run. There's a slightly softer one, so the kids have the flexibility there to kind of challenge themselves as they see fit. And you can't actually on this video kind of make out the steepness here, but this is a little bit of a challenge down here, especially once you get a bit of shadow coming across. But you're also down out of the wind, which is also crucial, I think, when you're trying to get the kids used to things. And as you can see, not very busy in the afternoon at all. This was 1 week out of school holidays, right in the heart of winter. This is middle of July. So it gives you an idea of the crowds at Thredbo. I think Thredbo, I was really quite surprised by how little the crowds are. Still capable of falling. You see little jumps off the side there as well that the kids love hitting. I'm too old for that now, sadly. Now, as I said, like when better years, you can kind of zigzag off through the trees a bit more. This particular run doesn't have too much to go off and explore. There's little jumps. But some of the other runs, and I'm not going to go because this is a video about, good runs and a pathway to take with your kids. I'm not going to go too hard with the runs, so there's some real good fun black runs to be had. If your kid gets that far, good on them. Now the beauty of this particular, or the beauty of High Run as that kind of next step up is that it ends back at Friday Flats. And you'll see there's a track coming out there. Now I'm going to show you that track later on. That's a bit more of a challenge. It's called the Dream Run. So that has made the cut, but not till a bit later on in the piece. Now, as we come down here, you're going to start seeing the top of Friday Flats come into play. There's some very long runs at Thredbo. I think Thredbo has the 5 longest runs in Australia, actually. Those of you who are from overseas watching this would probably have a laugh at that, but because very different conditions here in Australia. And a lot of these runs really can burn your legs and the kids as well. So it's good that it's not too crowded because you can take your time. And this little bit here, sometimes you can actually nick in to the left there and go into actual Friday Flats proper. I've seen that before. This year, that wasn't the case. So that's actually my youngest son there. So he's in a lesson, I caught up with him. So you can see they've actually got his age group, which was 7, pushing themselves onto High Noon. That was probably after about 5 days of lessons. I think he probably got down there about 4 days. So that gives you an idea of kind of the scale you're stepping up to when you go to High Noon. In just a second here, we'll head around the corner to what you'll see is Friday Flats. So that's a really good run. And so as soon as you get down to Friday Flats, you can jump back on the Cannonball Express. It'll take you back up to that spot, and you can either go again and just go back up and go down High Noon again, or from that spot you can head back down to Cruiser, or you can even go further across again if you kind of got there. And this last little bit sends you careering back down to your parents who are standing down the bottom hoping to God you're in one piece. Okay, the next one down here. This is a nice long run, this one. So once you've kind of nailed that High Noon experience, you're going to move over to the Central Spur, in my opinion. So that's kind of a bit further along. We just touched on it a little bit when we went to Lenny's Leap. Now, this has gone up the Antons T-bar, and from the Antons T-bar you kind of come around this big sweeping bit. That's actually reasonably steep. But you can, at this point, there's quite a few runs, especially when there's snow. You can go right down the face next to the T-bar, down through the rocks, and find some powder bowls in there. That wasn't the case this year, and you can see the wind's really roaring today. So it's a bit more exposed. The kids are going to have to deal with a bit more wind. Obviously there's an epic park there, that's well beyond my league. And a few more kind of people going at 1,000 k's an hour down the hill like maniacs. So just a bit more to think about. But what I really like about this run is that you can just go up and down on the T-bar a few times, which is plenty fun. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I'm going to show you in this one is if you kind of traverse across. So we're going to start on Lenny's Leap, and then we're going to cut across the Anton's T-bar here. We're going to head all the way down past the Sponners T-bar, keep traversing across, and then join up with the Village Trail. The Village Trail is something of probably a famous run at Thredbo, but if you actually do the whole Village Trail, there's a lot of flat spots and it's not the most exhilarating thing, so you kind of make your own runs here, right? So as you get down here, you start to get a bit of powder trapped. That wind that's blowing off all that snow off the top starts to blow the snow down here, and you can find a bit more fun to be had. And this particular run has quite a range of experiences. So you have that kind of steep start where you get to come down and get a bit of speed and do a couple of fast turns, and then you kind of got this traverse bit where you're kind of coming through a bit of trees. You can head down there in better years, not this year. Well, you could head down there, I did head down there. I just found a lot of ice and a lot of pain. You can just kind of just veer off this if you want to find a few lumps to hit. Now you go underneath the next T-bar. This is actually a pretty fun run as well, just on its own account, but reasonably short. So I thought I'd show you something that's just a bit more of an adventure. And it's also kind of like, gets pretty full on with crowds. Guys really tear down there. So that kind of keeps it a little bit uncool for the kids, and the T-bars are a bit more of the challenge for the kids. So I do, we didn't do too many runs on it with the kids, to be honest. A few here and there. It's a bit exposed too. But once you get down here a little bit, there she goes. She's a bit of a Evel Knievel, my daughter. Come on, get up. So that track in front of you there, that's kind of a lower track that you can take from the previous T-bar I mentioned. So you don't have to come across where we came across. You can come across a bit further down, and that tends to be if you're kind of traversing from High Noon directly. So if you recall the High Noon video, you can just keep going, traversing. When I start turning downhill, you can traverse across, you come out there. This bit's a lot of fun. Now I couldn't get a video of this because it was closed this year, but up right in front of you right up there, coming in from the right of screen, there's an awesome run called Bush Ranger. I'm pretty sure it's called Bush Ranger, yeah. And it comes in from the side there. That's a killer run if you want to really have some fun amongst the trees. It's a black run. But here we go, now I joined up with the Village Trail. This is taking across to the front mountain, to the Krakenback section. And now you can you're on a trail, so another experience again. So you kind of got that little bit of a thrill of the cliff off to the side there. You've got this bank to the right. It's got hit spots all the way along it, lots of little jumps and tricks you can pull off there. Often things you can dodge and jump, and it's just a spectacular view as well coming down here. So I really love this run. It's not overly steep, but it's steep enough that there's no need to unclip or get the kids walking. And as you can see, like, this is in the middle of the day. It's not like there's people hurling past us too often, except for those two. And you can see up there just ahead, there's black runs that cut through those trees, but just unfortunately not this year. What's the boss telling me here? So by this stage, your legs are probably feeling it. So a couple of pauses, well earned. Now, as we come out here, we're going to pop back out onto one of the main tracks coming down from the Eagle's Nest at the top of the Kosciuszko Express. So this is kind of, I guess, you could say the main face of Thredbo. Nice little 360 spot there. And once you get onto here, again, it's a whole bunch of different runs you can take. I think this is the one that goes kind of down here is Super Trail. And I'm going to take you from here back to Friday Flats. So again, thinking that the kids at front of mind here, I'm pretty sure there's usually a track that goes off down there, but to the left, but it was closed unfortunately. But that's okay. So we just come down here and we're going to drift off the Super Trail and come down eventually onto the Sundowner. Now, my daughter had an absolutely spectacular crash here, which I've cut out, mostly because I was pulling her out of the trees for 7 minutes. Maybe one day I will publish that video because it was an unbelievable miss. So this is actually quite steep. Now, it's not considered a black run, but again, you're just kind of challenging the kids a little bit more. My daughter here, as you can see, is minimizing the slope by some big broad turns. She didn't do that before she crashed and went straight down, but as you can see, hasn't lost her fear at all. Now, when we get down here, you can actually split. So if you wanted to, you could head to the right and it'll take you back down to the Valley Terminal. So that's kind of the bottom of the Kosciuszko Express, also the bottom of the gondola. So you can go down that way. But considering that at this stage, you're probably getting the kids a bit more familiar with handling the slopes and everything, you can head down the Sundowner, which is here, and that's going to take you back down to the bottom of the High Moon, which in turn then takes you across to Friday Flats. Now, by this stage, you're right kind of down the bottom of the mountain. You're unlikely to have any wind. You are going to get a bit of, as you can see, shadow, and it can get quite slushy down here as well. So that's something to note, especially towards the end of the day. But then with those machines, they pump it back up every single day and you're good to go. And as you can see, there goes my daughter flying off into the distance once again. I know it doesn't look like I'm moving fast. That's because I can't see a thing in that shadow. So this little steep bit here, and then once you get past that, it's pretty much just a nice clean traverse. It's graded enough that you don't need to worry about having to walk and unclip, which is the last thing you really want to have to do with the kids, because so much of your speed is just, and your momentum is based on your body weight, and they just don't have it, right? So a lot of the trails I've deliberately left off this because the kids just can't make the distance, which means you're standing there waiting for them to walk and catch up with you, or they're getting very frustrated. So I've kind of left those ones off. And here we go, connecting up to High Moon. And this part you're familiar with from earlier in the video. It's going to take us down to Friday Flats. All right, now for the next run, I've chosen the Dream Run. Now this connects the cruiser area down to Friday Flats the steep way. Now I think that the kids are actually a little bit scared of this at first. I think maybe it gets built up a little bit in their heads when they're in the lessons, but also you do ride the chairlift over this and it's steep, as you can probably tell. But my three kids are able to do it quite well. I think it's a good next step. Once you've kind of got all the way over to that main face and all the way back to Friday Flats successfully, I think that adding the Dream Run to their repertoire is a good place to start, because it's not an overly long steep bit. It's not like going right up to the top of Krakenback and then trying to come all the way down the front of the steeps there, or doing funnel web or cannonball. This is actually more just kind of this bit here is the hectic bit, and then it's all kind of sweet after that. So it does get icy. That's the trick. And that's something that they kind of need to come to grips with. So this kind of gives them a taste of a bit of ice without having to deal with the wind or anything like that. You can find like a bit more on the sides here, which is why I stick to the sides, because the sides are going to have a little bit more powder or slush to handle with. And once you get to about here, exactly where it says slow, you gun it. But what I really like about this run is it gets them used to that steepness, and then you come into this like really kind of almost magical trail through the forest. It's actually really good when it's just like snowing and there's a bit just powder kind of falling down around you. It's really quite cool, and it's an unusual run. I think like you got that kind of cliff edge down the side there, and then there's banks that you can kind of hit to the right the entire way down, and it's still within that kind of Friday Flats cruiser zone. So once the kids have kind of built up to a certain standard or a certain level where they want to challenge themselves yet again, I say go hit the Dream Run. This little bit here, so you kind of go through that little flat bit winding through the trees, and then there's a little end bit here which is just a bit steeper. And this particular year was just on the brink of maybe not being usable because there's a couple of little rocks and things coming through, but still good. And then you pop out down here and you're in the familiar territory of High Noon. So the kids have got, they've been leveled up by the by dealing with the steepness, dealing with a bit of ice, dealing with that kind of cliff edge right there, got a bit of confidence. And then you come out at the end, and the last half of it is the end of High Noon, which then links to the end of the Sundowner, which gives you that kind of familiarity for that last half. So they can take a breath, relax, rejoice in the fact that they've done it, and get back down that way to Friday Flats. All right, now, if you can do that, you can go across to the other side of the mountain. So this is the Basin. So this is when you go to the top of the Kosciuszko Express and you go over the back onto the next face. Now, this is a short run, but the reason why I like it is because you can see it's got this big open bowl. It's really nice, but you can't tell in this particular video, unfortunately. I didn't have the camera on me on the good day, but the sun hangs out here a lot longer than it does on the other side. So when you've got High Noon and all those ones are in deep shadow, over here it's still in sun. So you, the parent, can still see it's still a bit warmer. Still a bit warmer. It's a bit warmer. And you've got this vast open amount of space to just practice some nice big carves and turns. On better years, you can like head off between the rocks there, or even go high up and ring that bell and come down through the rocks there. There's some really good runs there. Didn't have them this year, but this is an easy way to convince the kids, because the kids kind of get freaked out when you say, well, let's go to the back of the mountain. This is a place they haven't been able to see before. It's way further than the classes go generally. So this is kind of a big step for the kids. And then they get over the other side, there's this big open, easy to handle run, which is definitely steep, but has a nice dusting on it always. And every time I've experienced it anyway. It does get a little busy, as you can see, like people do come down there with a bit of pace. It's got a couple of different side paths you can take, like different angles you can come into the bottom on. It's not a hectic T-bar either. It's it's probably one of the easiest T-bars on the whole entire mountain. There's no sudden slopes or lots of people cutting across, and yeah, so that I reckon is the next step, is get them down into the basin and on that run, which is called the Basin Run. Okay, and the thing about the Basin Run is, if you go back up the T-bar, you can do this run. Now this is a nice mix of everything yet again. So this is starting at the very top of that T-bar that I was just, the Basin T-bar, so the bottom of the one we just ended there. And you can come careering down here. Now that's the top of the Kosciuszko Express. You can see that grey building there. And if you come in summer, that's where you'll jump off if you want to walk up to Mount Kosciuszko. When you come flying down here, you can veer off on this side, on the left side of the rock, and then you come over the top of this kind of thrilling face, just looking down into the valley, all the way down to Friday Flats, right in the very distance there. And this is, you can't quite tell on the video, this is quite steep. So it's a really good next step challenge for the kids. Now it's wide enough and big enough that they can traverse nice and wide, and you can take some easier runs if you need to, especially if you've got kids at different ages, they don't all have to go hard. That bush ranger one I was telling you, by the way, if you go straight ahead to that left down there, that's that run through the trees I was talking about before. And depending on which way the wind's blowing, this can actually kind of get nice and soft and powdery in here too. So you come flying down here, and you got it goes from that kind of transitions from that steep face to a bit more of a kind of a trail, I guess you could say. In fact, I think this is actually part of Super Trail. Well, this is his Super Trail. And then you're going to come back out onto that main face at Krakenbach. And again, if you stay on this side, on the left side, as you're heading down a mountain of that chairlift, the Kosciuszko Express, you're looking at more kid-friendly runs. But if you go onto the left side, onto the right side when you're heading down the mountain, that's where you're going to find your much more challenging runs. There's a whole bunch of black runs weaving through the rocks and trees there. You need a fair bit more snow than we had this year to, safely do it. It's probably the wrong word, but just do it in a way that's enjoyable. I did go down there a few times. It's just too many ice and rocks you can't see to have fun. So again, there's a couple of different runs here. There's one on the other side of that fence called World Cup, I believe it is, where they actually do the big races. And if you get a chance to see that, it's pretty amazing watching how fast the pros go flying down that hill. So again, this is a really long run and a real leg burner. Now, around about here is where we connected a couple of runs ago when we came down and joined the village trail after riding up the Antons T-bar. Now in that example, I took you to the left down there to where my daughter had that crash, and we went down to Friday Flats. Now the alternative is to hug or veer more towards the right. Now this can get pretty fun. Now depending on if you're snowboarding or skiing, there's a middle run full of moguls, so well worth avoiding if you're on a snowboard or if you just don't like moguls. And it's a lot steeper than it looks, I will tell you. If you start coming down this right side, there's a fair bit of kind of nice soft stuff to deal with on the sides. It's not quite as lumpy. It does get a lot lumpier in the afternoons once people have been carving into the man-made snow for a while. That slush tends to mogul itself a little bit. But as you can see, there's a bit more sun here later in the afternoon as well, because it's facing that into the sun a bit better. And that's the Kosciuszko Express above us there, I believe. I will warn you, down the bottom here, you'll see when we eventually get down there. You will see the Kosciuszko Express that heads back up over our heads there. And you'll also see, is it a Kosciuszko Express? I'm pretty sure it is. And you'll see the gondola. There's also another chairlift there called the, I think it's called the Snow Gums chairlift. Now that chairlift is a punish. It's really long, and it can get quite slow when it's windy, and it's got no footrest. That might be, there, sorry, I can't see. No, that's definitely the Kosciuszko Express because you can see the footrest. Yeah, it's Snow Gums. It's a really spectacular chairlift. It kind of goes up through the trees, and there's big valleys it goes over and everything like that. And it tends to keep running when the wind stops the Kosciuszko Express, because the Kosciuszko Express is probably the first lift that's going to close from the wind. There you can see the Snow Gums in the distance there. So theoretically by this point, you've got the kids over, the kids have had to go on the basin, you've got a couple on the basin. At this stage, they may have been sticking to runs that go down to Friday flats because that's where they're familiar, that's where they've been learning, that's where they feel safe and secure. This one's going to take them down to a different part of the mountain. And it's a long run. It's going to give them a lot of opportunity to practice their turns, hit some banks. There's lots of little jumps and fun things to do on the way as well. And you tend to find a lot more adults over here as well. So they're seeing kind of potentially a higher class or a better ability of skier and snowboarder going down here as well. And the beauty of it as well, for the kids as well, is once you get to the bottom, you're not forced to go up to Kosciuszko again and redo it. Because if they get to the bottom here and they've had it, which is possible because it's a long run, you can just get the gondola up to the mid station, and that will drop you off literally at the top of Friday Flats. Or you can just go all the way back up to the cruiser, and they can then maybe have a final run of the day down High Noon or down Dream Run. So that's kind of the way that I approached it with the kids. All right, so that almost brings us to the end. Figuratively and literally, there we are. Plenty of food down there as well. Obviously, toilets, water, the works. Not a very crowded lift, to be sure. I do have one last one left, and that's right over here. This is where the kids are going to want to end up at the very end of it all. Now this is the terrain park at the Easy Rider T-Bar. So it's a very short run. It's on the cruiser, so it's a familiar environment for them. They'll see heaps of people doing it all the time, and it's an opportunity to, at the end of the week, maybe just push themselves, hit a couple of boxes. This is me doing them here, so if I can do it, anyone can do it. And then as you veer off here to the left, I'm going right. But if you actually go to the left, there's some bigger jumps down there, which you can probably see out of the corner of your eye, but with my kids, they weren't quite up to that standard as yet. So there's my littlest one. And if you go off to the side, it's kind of like bunny hops that the kids can just start to test themselves out. And then there's a T-bar at the end that just takes them back up. So it's quite a short run, but it's quite a short T-bar. They can do lots of them over and over and over again without too much hassle. It is a pretty challenging T-bar. I will say, because it's short, it gets steep and it gets well worn. So you can see a couple of jumps here. My young bloke, he wasn't quite up to the jumps, but you can see those bigger jumps to the side there as well. So if you've got it in you, you can hit those as well. And boom, I'm going to say you got in my way. Anyway, there's an idea of how you may be able to, or the best runs at Thredbo if you're traveling there with your kids, and an idea of maybe the way that you want to progress through them as your kids level up. I hope that was of help or use to you as you're heading down there. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Chris Stead.